All right, I'm excited for this one. Will Currie, welcome to UK Fight Site. Appreciate you coming down, mate. You've got a lot on today, just from our quick chat beforehand. Just want to talk to you about the early starts of your career, your amateur career, and where you are now as a pro. But before we get into all that, where did you grow up?
I grew up in London. I lived in Victoria, where I currently reside my whole life. My parents live in the countryside in East Sussex, a village near Tunbridge Wells called Wadhurst. And yeah, I've gone back and forth since a young age. But yeah, I've lived in London my whole life.
Yeah. What was you like growing up? What was you into?
Football.
Football, yeah?
Obsessed with football. Always had like one passion. Wasn't really someone with dispersed interests. I was always a all or nothing kind of person. So football was the thing for me that I was obsessed with at that time.
What team did you support?
It was a kind of a weird one because I started off as like Chelsea because they're the team that wins, and I was like living in London, but my mum was a West Ham fan, so soon I became like, no, I'm a West Ham fan because that's how the family is. So I ditched the Chelsea kits and put the West Ham kits on, but then it became awkward because I started playing for Millwall, and as you know,
Yeah.
Millwall, West Ham, that's like the Israelis and the Palestinians. So it was a bit of a weird one playing for the youth of Millwall, but supporting West Ham. But I remember one time I went to a West Ham game and I'd just finished training at Millwall, and I went to the West Ham game, and underneath my West Ham top I had a Millwall tracksuit on because I had to go from the training straight to the game.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, it's like if you tell that to some people, they'd instantly just X you, ban you. You know, you're a terrible, you're not a supporter. So what can you do?
It's like you was undercover.
What can you do? Exactly.
Yeah, so we're really close to West Ham over there.
Yeah.
On match days, it is a crazy atmosphere around here.
Imagine the UFC at London Stadium.
I don't know.
That would be a dream.
Yeah,
Yeah, one day hopefully I can pull that off.
mate, fingers crossed.
That's it.
When did you start getting into martial arts?
I always was into martial arts. Like boxing's the original, I think, for most people.
Yeah.
You know, David Haye, I was quite into his career when I was like 10, 11, watching him come up, beating Monty Barrett with him falling over the ring as he comes in, and watching him get the cruiserweight titles over Macronelli. I remember like that time period, so I remember just watching him a lot because he was obviously a London guy, a good boxer from here. I didn't really know much about MMA, but I always preferred boxing because that was just my mindset. But then as I got to around the age of 15, we started playing like, the video game a little bit, started watching it. Conor McGregor started to come out, he started to blow up, started watching his journey. And I'd say after David Haye, McGregor was the fighter that I watched like even more intently, like that at the start, that rise going into like the Aldo fight, before that Mendes. And I was just really into it and I thought it was really cool. So at that age as well, around 15, you start, boys start going through, that sort of period where they're starting to become men, but then they're not really. But, it's a lot of confusion for a lot of young guys. So at a young age, you start realizing that it's good to be able to defend yourself. So I wanted to learn how to defend myself as well, because I was in a boarding school, and when you're in a school where, you can't exactly leave, you can't get away, you're the last weapon,
Right.
so I like to see myself as a human weapon now, because I am the last weapon. That's why I train MMA, because I can do it on my one now. So if I'm by myself and someone wants to chat shit to me or have a problem with me, and as much as I want to live in a civilized world, it's not always civilized.
No,
So that it made me obsessed with fighting. It made me like, this is a skill that I want. I want to, as a man, be able to fight because I think it's invaluable. So that's what got me into it. And then I became obsessed once I started learning.
And what was it like then at boarding school? So was it a bit scrappy? Was that like a boys' school?
It was a mixed school, but I was in a boarding school where it was just boys, obviously. I just dealt with a guy in my year. He played the same position as me in football, so it was a bit of a rivalry. We're both central midfielders. And, I was just small. At the time, I was like one of the smallest kids in the year. Like, I had a really late growth spurt, like late puberty. It was really weird. And I was tiny, and this guy that I had to deal with at the time, he was bigger, he was more established in the school, he was the cool kid. And yeah, it was just like, I lost a fight to him, he beat me up, and I was just like, oh, this is miserable. Kept my head down for the next 2 years every time I walked past him. But ultimately, I just became obsessed with the idea of like the power level, Dragon Ball Z, getting the power level up, because I started getting a bit bigger, started growing a little bit, started taking myself to a martial art gym. And I started doing, I can do this, and it builds.
Yeah.
Yeah.